Peace, peace, peace. I am Phillip Roundtree, and you are tuned into the June 9th edition of Rhetorically Speaking. So, I had a little bit of technical difficulties. Shout out to Restream, who wanted to go down. If you're not familiar with what Restream is, it's a streaming platform that millions of people use, and so they picked the perfect time to go down. I'm cool. Right, I'm cool over here. I can start about 20 minutes later, but I know a lot of gamers use it. And if you've never seen gamers on live streams, they go nuts literally for about 15 to 20 hours at a time. So, my prayers, if I was a praying man, are with them. But no, we back. We streaming on Facebook Live now. Shout out to the people who are watching on Facebook Live. Props to the people who are watching on YouTube at some point. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Quantify LLC, and at some point I'll be bringing up IG Live. Those are the people who they just refuse to follow directions. Again, we know what type of people they were in school. They the ones it took them a little bit, right? They wanted to do what they wanted to do first before they made their way over to their peers. So today we're going to have a conversation about this idea of defunding and abolishing the police, and whether or not this is the answer. I'm not going to tell you this is the answer. Spoiler alert. Like, this is above my pay grade. I'm not necessarily well versed in the idea of what exactly defunding the police and abolishing police departments entail. As I said on my Facebook post, I'm going to put my trust into the people who I view in a positive light, people who are more knowledgeable in the area. So we talk about people like Gabe Bryant, we talk about Mark Lamont Hill, and the list goes on. So if they say, yo, we need to defund the police, abolish the police, all right, I'm a rock with them, because I know what their intent is. I know they're not just saying it for it to be trendy, but there's a lot of studying, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of boots on the ground that goes into them making that type of statement. In the meantime, though, that doesn't mean I'm just going to rest on my laurels or depend solely on them to give me what my perspective is. No, I trust them, but I still have to do my due diligence in reading articles, both pros and cons, right? Those individuals who are for and those who are against this idea of defunding the police, and then those who are for and against this idea of abolishing the police department. So in preparation for this episode, and I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on the subject matter, even though I don't even know if I can necessarily read the comments, just based on how this new setup is. But I'm a post just some of the resources that I've been using as to what exactly defunding the police is. So shout out to my man Chris Scott, who was a Portland Oregonian, who sent me this. And it pretty much talks about what defunding the police does not mean, right? So it does not mean eliminate all police funding. It means police will be funded. Police will not be overfunded. There will be a redistribution of the city budget. Everyone gets a fair share. Why? And I think that's an important idea as to why I see so many people with, whether it was the protesters who had the defund the police cardboard signs, of all ethnicities, of all ages. There's the people who are posting on social media who are saying defund the police, abolish the police. I get it, right? I get it. Whenever we see something, we want to keep up with the Joneses, right? We want to keep up to the Joneses. A lot of us are followers, right? Me, myself included. Like I said, I see the majority of the people who I admire in this particular area and whose opinions I trust. And so I'm going to follow them. That's cool. But you can't be afraid to say, you know what? I don't know something. There's no shame in that. Even in me writing a post that I made about it, saying I have no idea about it, a part of me felt shameful. Like, Phil, you fashion yourself this intellect, this knowledgeable person, but yet this is an area that you don't know. But this is how we've been conditioned, right? We've been conditioned not to ask the questions. Asking questions is not cool, especially when you grow up in certain environments, in certain areas, because nobody wants to be the oddball. Nobody wants to stand out. That takes a lot of a lot of courage. That takes a lot of courage to really say, yo, I'm not well versed in this area. Again, shout out to the people who are watching on IG Live. You want to take yourself over to Facebook, because I don't know if I could be reading your comments. I appreciate y'all. Quantify LLC on Facebook. But back to this. So the reasoning as to why is police should focus on crimes and criminals. Police are not mental health counselors. I echo that sentiment, so I will say it again. Police are not mental health counselors, and I'm going to say it one more time. Police are not mental health counselors. Police are not social workers. I'm going to say that times 8, but I'm going to save y'all to, hearing me say it times 8. Police are not medical professionals. Police are not education specialists. Police should not be responsible for everything. I completely concur. And I'm going to get into that a little bit as to how we've gotten ourselves in this position. I got some new glasses on. They kind of fresh. They kind of fly. They kind of sexy. They're a little thin on the side. But you know what they not doing? They not staying put. So let me put these other ones on. Defunding the police emphasizes reassessing our values, investing in our communities, investing in our people, funding our schools, funding our hospitals, funding our services, funding our infrastructure. Understand that presenting defunding police as the same as eliminating all funding for police is intentionally misleading and manipulative. And so, again, I think that's important to highlight, right? When we have this conversation, this national conversation on defunding their police, there's so many pros and cons as to why, right? As to why this should take place. And I'm sure there's validity on both ends, right? I'm sure there's validity on both ends. And so, we're going to get into that conversation. Let me see what the people saying on IG. Can't know everything. Exactly. Dane, hello, I'm for defunding the police, but that money should be allocated towards the community and to educating the police. It's one thing to limit their power. It's another to teach them. So I appreciate that comment. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to post just based on that comment. Again, you can see the graphic if you were watching on Facebook. And so I think the issue, one of the major issues when we talk about the funding of police is that they're overfunded, right? They're overfunded. And so when we talk about this idea of educating the police, yes, that's a beautiful thing. But how much more funding is needed in order to educate the police? So for those who are watching, you're able to see what the graphic is. The NYPD city population is 8.4 million. Again, these glasses ain't doing me no good. Their police budget is $6 billion. Now, listen, I'm struggling with these glasses over here, boy. I gotta put the fly ones back on because those are fogging up. So when we talk about the NYPD and their city population being, 8.4 million, their police budget is $6 billion. Now we're talking about the entire country of Ukraine, whose population is 40 million, right? It equals to the military budget of an entire country. We're talking about the NYPD, right? And so when we talk about taking money away from these individuals, why should they have the same budget as the military? Part of that idea is the militarization of the police. We view the police as the military in America. And that's why you see your president getting on, talking nonsensically about the police and their need to exert dominance against the people. That's military language. Right? That's what we say when we're going to go invade Syria, invade Iraq, invade Afghanistan. We want to exert our dominance over the people. Again, LAPD, their police budget is the same as the military of North Korea. Chicago PDs is the same as the military of Iraq. Houston PD is the same military budget of Uganda. In my hometown, where I currently reside, Philly PD, 760 million is the same military budget of Venezuela. Now we know that monetarily as a country, we're worth more than a lot of these places, right? But again, if we're putting all of our money into one area, into one specific area, is it fair to say that they're going to view themselves in a much higher regard than they probably should, right? So if you're saying here in Philadelphia that the police have been allocated $760 million, and shout out to the protesters, shout out to everybody that's been in the movement of this idea of defunding police here in Philadelphia, because it came out today, well, within the last 48 hours, that our Mayor Kenny said, no, you know what, we're not increasing the police budget. Because imagine if this didn't take place with George Floyd, who had his funeral today. The police budget would have been increased. Because this is what we do in society. It's a part of the mystique of the police. Right? We talk about teachers. Oh, they don't get paid enough for the job that they do. I'm sure that we all can agree to that. And so this is the same mystique that the police have. But yet they continue to get a majority of the funding, a majority of the resources from their respective cities. Because it's this idea that they're the Army, they're the Navy, they're the Marines. I think I got all of them. They're the Coast Guard going into war zones. And so it's this fundamental idea and fundamental ideology about what the police represent. And so it makes sense. If you're getting all the money, then yeah, you should probably be, whether right or wrong, shouldering a lot of that responsibility. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. And so what I hear, and when I hear defunding the police, it's saying, listen, we're taking some of this money away, and we're going to allocate it somewhere else. And we're going to take away some of this responsibility that unfortunately has been laid upon you. Right? But again, if we have to get away from this idea, and it's hard in a capitalistic society, that this profession in particular continues to be underpaid. When the starting salary is 50, 60 some odd $1,000. I know that's for here in Philadelphia. And we understand that the risk that they're taking, but is the risk that they're taking blown out of proportion? I think that's one of the questions that are asked by the people who, who are in favor of defunding and abolishing the police departments. Listen, I'm a firm believer that nothing can be changed in the midst of it. It needs to be broken down and built back up. And so when I see Joe Biden, when I see Bernie Sanders, when I see all of these Democratic in particular politicians coming out saying, no, defunding is not necessarily the answer. We need to do more sensitivity training. We need more oversight boards, both on a local and a national level. It's just like, well, damn, I know here in Philadelphia, we've had a police oversight commission that continues to get defunded. And so we've defunded every other area. But now when it comes to police, everybody's up in arms. Because if we're honest, it's a war in the streets. Whose streets are they? When we look at the police and how they operate, especially in urban communities, they want to, again, exert that dominance, that force, that idea that says these are our streets. Conversely, the community is saying, we're paying y'all salaries. These are our streets. You work for us. See, somewhere in the midst of the conversation, that got lost. That these city officials work for the people. And as we see, again, here in Philadelphia, and we're starting to see, and I'll get into that in other cities, that it's the people who are saying, nah, these are our streets. And so we can see why there's this continuous battle, because nobody wants to quote unquote lose. But what we're talking about is a shift in ideology. I don't know how many times I can continue to say this. For 400 years, the police, the slave catchers have exerted their dominance amongst the people, amongst the marginalized communities. And so it's a beautiful thing to see them stand up, right? It's a beautiful thing to see the people stand up and say, nah, this ain't it. So we have community leaders like Melina Abdullah, who's a Black Lives Matter, who's a member of Black Lives Matter in Los Angeles and professor of Pan-African Studies at Cal State University, Los Angeles, who says when there are crises or emergencies in communities, you have people who actually are in those communities who respond to those crises and usually don't need guns. So instead of sending police officers to respond to disturbance calls, activists argue, why not send mental health workers or community leaders? I get it in theory. And this is some of the arguments in why we have to defund the police. And can then be later used as to the idea of abolishing the police. Now, somebody who's been a social worker now for the last 15 some odd years, that's a bunch of bullshit, if I do say so myself. Now, I worked in child welfare where I'm walking into crisis situations. It's an adversarial relationship from the start because I'm knocking on people's doors and saying, we received a report about your kid. And we know that's the one thing that people cherish. They cherish their kids before they cherish themselves. And so I had an issue walking into these people's lives, walking into these crisis situations, I'm going to be honest, to have these conversations. Now, listen, I have the gift of gab, and thankfully, I've never come across the issue. I've come across some of the toughest folk who had to be tough in order to survive. But unfortunately, my co-workers didn't. My co-workers were attacked. Because again, you're coming at people about their children, saying they're mistreating and or abusing their children. And so when I hear about how in Florida, children and youth workers are armed, I was all in favor for it. I was all in favor for it. I would have loved to have the police to go with me each time when I would go out to these homes. Because there is a fear aspect that people say, oh, maybe you shouldn't get into the profession if you're afraid. Again, you're dealing with people. So on that end, I understand. I understand. And maybe the inherent fear that I had during that time came from how I was socialized to view black and brown people, to view them as a threat. Or maybe it was because you coming at people in the most intense times of their lives, bringing allegations, whether true or false, and the type of emotions that can invoke in an individual. And so, no, I'm not going to necessarily agree with that part of the argument. Yes, I think that it can be in conjunction, right? That's why when we talk about mental health in the community here in Philadelphia, there's one officer who's trained in each department, and this was a few years back, so that might have changed, that will be trained in mental health first aid to understand how to assess individuals when they go out to difficult situations. Now, that wasn't enough. Maybe there should be social workers and therapists on staff within these police departments. And so maybe when we talk about these defunding efforts and shifting how the dollars are used, it's saying, you know what, the 35th district here in Philadelphia, one of the worst ever, we call them the Dirty Fifth, because that's how they operate. If they have a couple hundred officers assigned to that district, why not have 50 to 100 social workers assigned to it? Well, that might sound too much like right. Right? If we're talking about really curing some of the social ills that exist and truly trying to be preventative and not reactionary. When we talk about taking the money and putting it into the educational system, it doesn't matter how much money you put into the educational system. I'm gonna say that. Because what exactly are we doing? Are we changing the curriculum? If you're telling me that that's what the money is going to be used to, where it's not only during Black History Month, where we're talking about the contributions of Black folk in society, then yeah, let's get the money to the educational system, to the school district of Philadelphia. Does that mean they're going to adequately assess whether there's asbestos in a lot of these schools which currently exist? Is that going to change? And so when we talk about taking the money and putting it elsewhere, I'm all for it, right? Because again, when we're talking about a city having the same budget as a military of a foreign country, that's problematic in every area. But the issue is, one of the issues is they've become fat, right? Gluttonous. This is what they've expected. And so for those of us who have children and we know what it's like when you continue to give to a child and then you try to take away or you try to say no, we know the tantrums that's going to come. We know the resistance that's going to come. But we have to look at the end goal. We have to look at the end goal. And so that's why Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti is getting so much pushback. Right? Because he nixed the $250 million boost to the city's police department budget. And they're going to send the money to more community programs in the city's African American community. It's just like, damn, it took another nigga getting killed on camera for people to wake up. It took a knee to the neck and him crying out for his mother for white folk to wake up and for some black folk to wake up. And so, no, we need to do more. See, I listen to a lot of sports talk radio, and I've been finding it difficult within the last week or so because we have these predominantly white radio hosts having conversations about social justice. And I hear these white callers call in talking about how initially they were against Kaepernick and kneeling, but it took them viewing George Floyd in order for them to come around to the idea of peaceful protesting and kneeling. Like that was the straw that broke the camel's back. It reminds me of that Chappelle show where Dave was talking about they had him on potentially as a juror for R. Kelly. And he said, nah. He said, I don't care if you got him on video. I need to see him in the video in the music video, I need to see him pissing on a little girl. I need his grandmother to be in there talking about Robert in order for me to believe it. And so that's what I hear when I hear white folk who want to be allies now. And it's kind of frustrating because I start to think, well, damn, these last 3 years, you were complicit in the continued traumatization of black folk by the police, let alone Cap not having a job because of people who held the same sentiments as you. But you're complicit in the continued use of police brutality amongst black and brown folk by the police because you denied it. And so that makes you complicit. And so I hear the host saying, you know, good job. I'm glad you're coming around to see that it was never about the flag. And then I don't know how many other black folk, when we sit and have this conversation and hear these conversations amongst white people, whether it's on sports talk radio, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on or social media, whether it's in, you know, on the news. It's like, motherfucker, this is my life, my existence, my experience that you've been denying. And so you want a golf clap because you finally came around, because you got the privilege to come around. And it only took how many police videos? Because my words weren't good enough. Me telling you that this wasn't about the flag wasn't good enough. Me telling you that I was railroaded by Bloomsburg police justice system wasn't good enough. Philando Castile being killed on camera and his killer being exonerated, acquitted of murder charges in that same Minneapolis area wasn't good enough. But now you here. Now you ready to step up. Now you rocking the Black Lives Matter mask and t-shirt. Now you resharing defund the police. Man, FOH. Again, when we talk about this idea of justice, I view allyship the same way. I don't even necessarily know if it's room for you to be an ally if you just now coming around after 3 years. But you've been denying it for 40. It's room for you to go fuck some shit up. But no, we're going to reserve the ally tag for those who've been about that life. Whose harm to the community, when we talk about that continuum, it's on that opposite end where it's minimal. Not you, because you had a come to Jesus moment because you watched the video of another black man getting killed. It's this white girl who I follow on social media. She seems cool. And I see her with a shirt on talking about hunger for social justice. And it's a slogan she can get behind. And she got thousands of followers, getting thousands of likes. When just last year I had to DM her and say, yo, you can't quote Niggas in Paris by Jay-Z and Kanye West. And you had no understanding as to why. You don't get to be an ally yet. You got to go through some shit first. You got to show and tell. I don't necessarily know if you can ever get that moniker. That's reserved for some special white folk. But you could tag along. You could go use your privilege in a positive way, and it's more than just rocking a t-shirt. It's so much more. It's what you're doing when the cameras aren't there. When you're not posing on social media with a picture. What else are you doing? So I'm cool. I can stand behind folk like Michael Olnick. That's one white guy I know to a certain extent. And I know the work that he does. But some of y'all new people, nah, it's going to take more. It's going to take more than this. This is a start. What books are you reading? Are you buying from Uncle Bobby's and buying from Harriet's bookshop? Or are you just posting? Are you going on Coursera to take a little free class on understanding the things about the civil rights movement? I just signed up for a course on Coursera. That's why I'm bringing it up with regards to that. What conversations are you having with your black friends? Are you hungry for information? Are you jumping in their DMs? That ain't necessarily the answer either. Because even though we rock with you, we might not be in the mood to teach y'all. We might question your motives. We might got to keep you at bay, keep you at a distance for a little bit of time, so we can see what your works are. Because we've never seen this before. When we talk about the civil rights movement, I'm sure it was some people who was out in the streets back in the 60s because it was trendy. They ain't had social media though. Taking pics of them with the fist up. I don't know why you out there. For optics reason, that's cool. That's a good look. And I'm sure that helps the cause. But I don't know your intent. Shoot, that go to some of our black and brown folk too. I saw a lot more pictures and selfies than I'd care for at a lot of these protests. I'm going to keep it real. It felt a little nasty to me. Felt a little squeamish up in the stomach. Because where you get energy for the picture, if you leaving it all out on the field. And again, you might be new activist. I don't begrudge you. But that's the internal questions you got to ask yourself. When I talk about the activist folk that I follow across social media, I ain't necessarily see their faces. I knew they were there though. Because I don't know how much time you got to pull it out. If your sole mission is the people. I got sent a picture of my baby girl, 11, and she was somewhere where was some signs at, with her little fist up, and I was like, oh, my baby. But then I'm like, nah, we ain't doing it. This ain't about the you know what I mean, the show. That's not what this is. This ain't about going to go get your fist up for the photo opportunity. This is about you being out here for the betterment of self and for the betterment of a people. And so that's what we're talking about when we're talking about defunding the police and abolishing the police department. And so I think I'm starting to really grasp what this is about on a basic level. On a basic level, though. Because we can't have all of these deficits in areas that impact one's propensity to engage in violent behavior, in unscrupulous behavior, which even then is probably not the norm. Because we know the police riding around, stopping and frisking folk, giving folk the dirty eye, having unhealthy interactions with the police. And the interaction in itself isn't even warranted. You know what I'm saying? And so here we are, we compensating folk, we rewarding the bad behavior. And so when we talk about not taking something away, to something that's already exacerbated in itself, it leaves us no other choice but to get rid of all this shit because it's not working. It's not working. You know, I live probably about 15 minutes, 10 minutes away from Camden, New Jersey, who's completely abolished their police department. Completely dissolved in 2013. They merged with the county. And what happened? 7 years later, we see a significant drop in the murder rate and violent crimes. The police were encouraged to walk the neighborhoods, not just sit in their vehicle like they're doing at Germantown and Ashmead Street over here in Philadelphia, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Again, the military. But they were encouraged to walk the neighborhoods, build a relationship with the community. And they were trained and prioritized de-escalation. Again, when we talk about this adversarial relationship, and I talked about it before, how saying this, they talk about this guy Bologna here in Philadelphia who just got arrested, and there was a slew of cops cheering for him because he was arrested and going in, and they were cheering for him in support that the charges were trumped up, even though he was on tape assaulting somebody. So this is the type of mindset that we're dealing with when we talk about the police. And they say he's probably a great guy outside of there. No, you're not. You are who you are before you got here. This ain't some alter ego like Bruce Wayne and Batman. All your ideals, all your beliefs, your entire ideology, all your biases are brought with you to your particular job. And so unless you have this implicit bias training, unless you have the ability to look within, and some may say, why don't they have the ability to look within? I'm a firm believer in honing one's ability to think critically. And so that's why I'm an advocate of college. When done the right way, it can hone your ability to think critically. Is it overpriced? For sure. But it's exposure into a world that you not necessarily might have been part of. At one point here in Philadelphia, they wanted you to have at least 60 credits, which is in essence an associate's degree, before applying for the police department. Due to low enrollment, that changed. And so what does that mean? They tried to put in an age minimum. Think about 18, 19, 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds, hell, 25-year-olds. Think of their ability to think critically. What's needed is life's experience. What's needed is exposure. You know, if you want an example of the discipline and one's commitment to self and to the community, take a look at some of these officers. There's a physical fitness test to get in. But how many of them continue with their regimen? And so how does that impact police brutality? Think about it. You ever chase after a kid who's high energy? It's frustrating as heck, ain't it? It's already frustrating because you got to chase after them. But then when you start getting out of breath, you might be more inclined to put your foot out and trip a kid. I ain't saying I tripped a kid before, but I didn't trip the kid. I ain't going to say what kid. It might have been my daughter at one point, but hey, she all right. But think about it. Think about how that impacts you. So you might be more inclined to pull out your taser, pull out a gun, pull out your baton. If you have to work a little harder. The psychological component. There's one psychological test that takes place. It's nothing that's ongoing. Problematic much? Of course it is. Of course it is. You can't tell me that a job that deals with trauma on a day in and day out basis is not impacting you psychologically. That mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, you're not being harmed. But then that goes to the stigma that mental health has here in this country. And so, yeah, I'm starting to get tired. I'm starting to get hungry. I guess listen. It says it's the answer. Of course it's the answer. Of course it's the answer. Because we have to think about when these organizations came to fruition. And if you continue to put band-aids on these problems when we talk about trainings, education, etc., that does nothing to change the fundamental beliefs that has allowed what's continued to progress for hundreds of years. So yeah, I'm in favor of defunding. And you know what I am in favor of? Talk to him, Umar.
Let me see if y'all gave me any donations. Let me see. I'm giving y'all all my wisdom, but where the donations at? Last donation to the school was Richard Harris. Somebody better get on their Cash App. Somebody better get on their Cash App. Cash.me/$
Quantify LLC.
School. I better get some donations. I'm about to hang up.
Listen, man, I appreciate y'all. We had a late start today. Again, I don't even know if I informed y'all about the idea of defunding and abolishment of the police. Because ultimately, it's up to you, man. It's up to you to do the work. Yes, I'm providing some information, the little bit that I have, but it's up to you to truly do this work when we talk about trying to understand the conversations that are taking place here in society. So until tomorrow, peace.